You're listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates. Thanks to Concordia University, Wisconsin for supporting The Coffee Hour. Find out more about Concordia University, Wisconsin at cuw.edu. Live uncommon. Sarah Gulseth is out today, but happy to have her back soon. Today, we head to California, Paradise, California, where in November of 2018, fires destroyed most of the community, including the building of Our Savior Lutheran Church. Joining me today, the Reverend Brandon Merrick. He's pastor of Our Savior Lutheran Church in Paradise, California. Pastor Brandon, thanks so much for being my guest today on the Coffee Hour.
Well, thank you for having me here.
So tell us about the losses that were experienced. Tell us about the experience of the fire that I believe was called the Camp Fire in November 2018.
Yes, it was. Of course, unlike anything I have been through, I'd been living there for 4 years previous to the fire, and we knew, living in the foothills, that there was always the potential for fire. And it was not uncommon to have fires near us, but we have wonderful Cal Fire out in California is just phenomenal at being able to assemble aircraft for fighting fires, and they've got just a lot of Cal Fires actually volunteers, and so fires go, and then they're usually pretty quick to put them out. And so on the morning that this happened, and this is pretty common to everyone I've talked to, we all just believe that it's a fire and it's close, but it will get put out and it's going to be okay. And I think that's why it caught everybody so off guard, just how quickly the fire came in and just overwhelmed everything. By the time I was able to leave, we have a preschool on our church property. And it was about, I want to say right around 8 o'clock that we were putting out our first spot fire on our property. And that's when we had realized that this is not a typical fire, and that we had already called the parents to have them come and pick up their kids. We had, at the time, I think we had about 12 that were there. And so by the time the parents came to pick up the kids, and by the time I was leaving, I was unable to leave by car simply because of the gridlock. Paradise is a mountain community. Almost all of our roads are 2-lane roads. We have a couple of 4-lane roads that run through town, but we're up on a bluff, and so we have canyons on either side of us. So there's really only one egress, main egress down out of the community there. So I ended up having to leave on foot, and there were just simply fires starting everywhere. It wasn't a wall of fire moving in, but it was just spot fires starting everywhere because the embers were dropping out of the sky.
So what were the losses experienced by members of the congregation of Our Savior?
So we had approximately 50 households, and we had 47 homes that were lost. 40 homes that were lost. In the community itself, there were 17,000 structures, both businesses and homes. Roughly they say about 10% was remaining after the fire of Paradise.
Wow. So it was an extremely devastating loss for the community, for the members of the congregation, and the building of the church building was lost, as well as the parsonage, correct?
Correct.
So what were your first steps then in reuniting the congregation at the time of the fire and following the fire? Were you able to reconnect with everyone in your congregation, and what did that look like?
We were, and we have been blessed that day and beyond. So we have a sister church, LCMS church down in Chico, which is about 10 miles down the hill from where Paradise is. And the fire was on a Thursday. And we were able to meet, most of us, there at Redeemer in Chico that Sunday. And so it was very interesting. Normally, a very subdued when you come into the service and people are sitting down. But as we were seeing each other, a lot of us for the first time since the fire, there was just yelling and screaming and crying and hugging. And you could see that the members of Redeemer, and they were looking around with smiles on their faces because they could just see the emotion that came from us as we got to see each other for the first time since the fire. So it was really a blessing to be able to meet. So we met that Sunday and we just continued meeting at Redeemer for the first few weeks. We joined them in worship with Pastor Donald Jordan. And then we were able to hold services there at Redeemer. We just did it at noon instead of the 10 o'clock time where they met. And we did that then for 6 months until we could find a place to rent in Paradise.
Tell us about the next step, then the steps of rebuilding following the devastating fire in 2018.
So it was about a month after the fire. We gathered together, and we did so after every service just to sort of talk and to share resources and just come together as people. And so we began talking about, do we want to rebuild? Paradise, the population of Paradise was roughly 27,000. Following the fire, it's 3,500. So the questions were do we want to rebuild? Does it make sense to rebuild our church? We lost roughly half of our members who moved away and out of town and weren't going to be coming back. And the people that were remaining said, we want to rebuild, not for our sake, but for the sake of Paradise and the people that are left. For those that were now going to have to live amongst the devastation and the destroyed homes and the long process it's going to take to rebuild. So as a congregation, we decided we wanted to be part of that. We wanted to help what we can because that's what God called us to do. He doesn't call us to minister in easy times. He calls us to minister always, which includes times when it's not going to be comfortable and when it's going to be difficult and hard.
Were there blessings in the midst of such great loss?
Each and every day. God blesses us in ways, and I would say a lot of times we don't see those blessings because we're not necessarily looking for them. But I think when your home is gone and you're having to rely upon strangers to give you clothes so that you can change your clothes, I think it's then when we're really attuned to those blessings and just the outpouring of support and prayer from across our country and even from across the globe. I had people in Africa reaching out to us, and so it was just this outpouring of people who wanted to help and pray and do anything that they could, and that really helped sustain us and the Paradise community at large.
So you were committed to rebuilding. The congregation was committed to rebuilding. Were you able to complete that rebuild?
It is not complete yet. So we began construction back in March of this year. And so to date, we have the structure up. The roof is not quite finished yet, but the completion date is still set for Christmas of this year.
Are you affected by the current fires that are just wreaking havoc all over the West?
Well, I would love to say I'm not, but the fire did come close to us, and I'm actually in Chico right now. We're living in Chico, but it does. Mostly, it's the smells that just overwhelm you, and it takes you right back to that day and those emotions and feelings that we experienced. Plus the smoke, and you can just see the fear in people's eyes. We had a few of our members say, you know what, I need to go, and so they took off for a couple of weeks just because they couldn't go through that those feelings again. So there's still people that are hurting here. We take it one day at a time, 1 week at a time, and understand that God continues to bless us, but He also doesn't keep us from struggle. He doesn't keep us from not being harmed, so that we can rely upon Him, and our faith can grow, and our trust in Him can get greater and deeper.
So the fires have come near, but not damaged the current rebuilding of the building, but certainly has had a great emotional impact on your congregation.
Yes, we did have some members that relocated to a nearby a town of Oroville, and they were evacuated from there. So we did have a couple of our members that needed to be evacuated as well, just not there in Paradise.
How is Our Savior Lutheran Church in Paradise, California, able to continue to bring the good news of Jesus to your community that has changed so drastically since the fires of 2018?
Well, the one thing I've always appreciated about Paradise is that for being California, it's a very conservative town. Churches work well with the community leaders, and we have that great relationship. And so I think that for Paradise, community is a big part, and churches are very welcome part of that community. And so for us to keep caring for our community and working with them side by side, they see that our commitment is to them. It's in our loving them unconditionally without expectations of them coming to church, without expectations of them being converted or any of those, but they just see a genuine care for them as people, and I think that speaks volumes.
With hopes that that the build will be done in by Christmas of this year, correct?
Yes.
Well, we certainly will be including you in our prayers that that construction can finish and that you're able to gather around the Lord's word in your newly built building. In the meantime, still continuing to meet as you're able, I gather.
Yes, with COVID here in California and in our county, we're not able to meet in person in worship. So we've been, of course, doing that online, and that could affect our grand opening ceremony type things. But God's in control, and we will do what He calls us to do.
Pastor Brandon Merrick of Our Savior Lutheran Church in Paradise, California. Thank you so much for the update and God's blessings on your endeavors as you continue to share the good news of Jesus in Paradise, California.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk a little bit and appreciate, again, everybody who's reached out to us over the years.
You're listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.